The Forbidden Heist. The three sons of Neodry's cast long shadows across the barren wasteland as Max Thorne adjusted his black combat jacket. At 32, with a carefully maintained 3-day stubble and a jacket sporting exactly 14 pockets, Max was what he preferred to call an interplanetary retrieval specialist, definitely not a thief, as he would explain to anyone who asked. You know, Max said to himself, a habit he'd developed during his many solo missions, I'm starting to think that stealing, ethically relocating, the Jewel of Akiron might have been a slight miscalculation. He patted the seventh pocket on his jacket's interior, feeling the smooth, egg-shaped gem that pulsed with an inner blue light. According to the job description, it was merely a cultural artifact of moderate value. What the client hadn't mentioned was that it served as the binding stone keeping the consciousness of an ancient dragon god imprisoned. Max stood slightly out of breath, staring up at what appeared to be a massive stone dragon perched atop a concrete pillar. The creature was approximately 20 feet long, carved from dark, imposing stone with wings spread wide as if preparing to launch into flight. Its eyes glowed an eerie orange in the twilight, which Max found both impressive and deeply concerning. Stone statues shouldn't have glowing eyes. Behind the statue ran a massive concrete wall separating the outer wasteland from the gleaming metropolis of Neodry's. Max's specially designed sound-dampening boots had accumulated a fine layer of dust from the barren ground surrounding the fortress wall. The statue's mouth suddenly opened, revealing rows of stone teeth that looked alarmingly sharp for something carved from rock. Human, the voice boomed across the wasteland, causing small pebbles to dance across the ground. You escaped from the forbidden fortress. Now I'll have to devour you. Max adjusted his stance, hand moving to the neural disruptor holstered at his hip. The weapon was sleek and chrome, designed to look intimidating rather than functional, perfect because it was indeed more style than substance. Just try, he replied with far more confidence than he felt. I won't even. The rest of his sentence was cut off as the statue's wings, which had appeared solid moments before, suddenly flexed and beat once, launching the dragon into the air. It wasn't a statue. It had never been a statue. And Max, despite his many skills and 14 pockets full of useful items, realized he was, to use the technical term, completely screwed. Finish my sentence, apparently, he muttered, breaking into a sprint away from the very real, very angry dragon that was now airborne and making a sound that could only be described as a roar mixed with granite grinding against granite. And that was how Max Thorne found himself running for his life across a barren wasteland with a stolen jewel in his pocket and a stone dragon in pursuit. This would officially go down as the worst Tuesday of his life, well, second worst. There was still that incident on Proxima Centauri with the sentient gelatin. Awakening the ancient guardian. The dragon, which Max had mentally named Rocky, humor being his primary defense mechanism against terror, swooped down casting a shadow that seemed to drop the temperature by several degrees despite the three suns blazing overhead. Look, Max called over his shoulder, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just a tourist. The jewel fell into my pocket, gravity anomaly, very common in these parts. He ducked as Rocky made a grabbing motion with claws that appeared to be made of obsidian-like stone. You have awakened me from my slumber, Rocky bellowed, his voice like an avalanche with perfect diction. The consequences will echo throughout the cosmos. That seems a bit dramatic, Max replied, diving behind a boulder. Can't we just agree that I made a mistake and move on? I'm very good at apologies, ask anyone. Well, don't ask the magistrate of Beetlejuice 6, but anyone else. Rocky landed with enough force to create a small crater, his stone tail whipping around to block Max's potential escape routes. For something made of stone, the dragon moved with surprising grace. The Jewel of Akiron contains the essence of my being, Rocky explained. For 8,000 years, I have been bound to this place, forced to serve as guardian. You have set me free, and for that you must be rewarded? Max suggested hopefully. Consumed, Rocky finished. Your life force will complete my resurrection. Max took a moment to consider his options, which were admittedly few. His neural disruptor would be useless against solid rock, his emergency teleporter had been damaged during his hasty exit from the fortress, and none of his other pockets contained anything remotely useful against an angry dragon deity. Except, perhaps, wait. Max reached into his seventh pocket, the one on the inside left of his jacket, specially designed with moisture-resistant lining for delicate items, and pulled out a small silver device shaped like an egg timer. "Before you consume me," Max said with as much dramatic flair as he could muster while trying not to wet himself, "which sounds terribly unpleasant for at least one of us, I think you should know what this is." Rocky paused, orange eyes flickering with curiosity. "Explain, human." "This," Max said, raising the device, "is a temporal displacement oscillator. Very rare, very expensive, and very capable of sending you back to being a statue if you so much as breathe on me." This was, of course, a complete lie. The device was actually a specialized coffee bean grinder that Max had purchased on Titan because he was very particular about his morning brew. But Rocky didn't need to know that. The dragon's stone features were difficult to read, but Max thought he detected something like doubt in those glowing eyes. "You bluff," Rocky said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. "Do I?" Max raised an eyebrow. "Care to risk another 8,000 years as lawn decoration to find out?" What followed was a silence so profound that Max could hear the blood rushing in his ears. Finally, Rocky spoke, his voice slightly less earth-shaking than before. "What do you propose, human?" The unlikely negotiation. And that was how Max found himself sitting cross-legged on the barren ground, having what could loosely be termed a negotiation with an ancient dragon deity. Rocky had adjusted his size, a trick that, according to him, was trivial for one who commanded cosmic forces, to a more conversational 7 feet tall, though he remained unmistakably a dragon made of animate stone. "So let me get this straight," Max said, rubbing his temples. "You're not actually angry about being released from your prison?" "Correct. But you still want to eat me?" "Also correct, because it is traditional," Rocky explained as if discussing the weather. The liberator becomes the catalyst. The catalyst fuels the transformation. It is the way it has always been. Has it occurred to you, Max suggested carefully, that traditions can change? That maybe, just maybe, you could complete your transformation without turning me into Dragon Chow. Rocky seemed to consider this, his stone head tilting at an angle that made an unsettling grinding noise. "This is unprecedented. Let's call it innovative," Max said quickly. "Or forward-thinking. Or, not involving Max being eaten." "I have existed for 23,000 years, Rocky said. "Change does not come easily to one such as I." "Tell me about it," Max replied. "I still can't get used to those automatic soap dispensers in public restrooms. Wave your hands like you're conducting an invisible orchestra just to wash off some dirt." This drew what Max could only describe as a confused stare from the dragon. "Look," Max continued, "what if I could offer you something better than eating me? Something that would help you adapt to the modern cosmos?" He was improvising wildly now, a skill he had honed through years of talking his way out of situations that his sticky fingers had talked him into. "I am listening," Rocky rumbled, settling his stone bulk more comfortably on the ground. Max took a deep breath. "The way I see it, you've been out of commission for 8,000 years. That's a lot of catching up to do. Civilizations have risen and fallen, technology has advanced, fashion has regrettably gone through a neon phase. You step out into the universe now, even with all your cosmic powers, and you'll be as out of place as, well, as a stone dragon at a pool party. Your point, human. My point is, you need a guide. Someone who knows the current state of the cosmos. Someone who can help you navigate the complexities of modern society. Someone who knows which restaurants have the best dessert menus and which planets to avoid because their customs officials are unreasonably thorough about checking 14-pocketed jackets." Rocky's eyes narrowed. "You suggest a partnership." "I prefer mutually beneficial arrangement," Max said. "You don't eat me, and in return, I help you acclimate to the 25th century. Plus, I have a spaceship." "A spaceship?" Rocky's interest was piqued, orange eyes glowing brighter. The relentless pursuit, Max said with no small amount of pride. She's not much to look at, but she's fast, reliable, and has a coffee maker that would make baristas weep with joy. And what would you gain from this arrangement, besides continued existence? Max grinned. This was where his plan came together. Well, think about it. You're an ancient dragon deity with cosmic powers. I'm a retrieval specialist who occasionally finds himself in challenging situations. Your intimidation factor alone would make my job infinitely easier. No more running from security guards or hiding in air ducts. You just loom, and people tend to cooperate. I am adept at looming, Rocky acknowledged. The best, Max agreed enthusiastically. Top-tier looming. Olympic-level looming, if looming were an Olympic sport, which it absolutely should be. Rocky was silent for a long moment. Finally, the dragon spoke. I will consider your proposal on one condition. Name it, Max said, trying not to sound too eager. Return the Jewel of Akiron to me. It contains portions of my power that I wish to reclaim. Max hesitated. The jewel was worth a small fortune, and he'd gone through considerable trouble to acquire it. On the other hand, not being eaten was a compelling counterargument. And if I do, you promise not to consume me now or in the future. You have my word, Rocky said solemnly, and the word of a dragon deity is bound by forces beyond your comprehension. Good enough for me, Max decided, reaching into his pocket and extracting the jewel. It pulsed more rapidly now, as if recognizing its master's proximity. Here you go. No take-backs. When the jewel touched Rocky's stone claw, a flash of blue light momentarily blinded Max. When his vision cleared, the dragon stood before him transformed, still made of stone, still unmistakably a dragon, but now with veins of glowing blue energy running through his rocky hide like luminescent rivers. Much better, Rocky said, his voice somehow both quieter and more profound. I accept your terms, Max Thorne. Great, Max said, then paused. Wait. I never told you my full name. The jewel contains many insights, Rocky replied cryptically. Now, about this spaceship of yours. Partners across the cosmos. 3 hours later, Max found himself in the cockpit of the relentless pursuit, explaining the concept of artificial gravity to an ancient dragon deity who kept accidentally breaking things with his tail. The ship was designed for a crew of 2 to 4 humanoids, not one humanoid and one deity with multidimensional awareness crammed into a stone body the size of a small ground car. So that's the hyperdrive, Max said, pointing to a complicated panel of buttons and switches. Don't touch it unless you want us to end up inside a star. Or worse, New Jersey. This vessel is primitive, Rocky observed, but functional. Where do we journey first? Max had been pondering this very question. With a dragon deity as his new partner, many previously impossible jobs were now potentially within reach. First, Max said decisively, we need to establish some ground rules. Rule number 1, no eating sentient beings, including me, no matter how annoying I become. And I promise you, I can be very annoying. Agreed, Rocky said. Though I reserve the right to intimidate when necessary. Absolutely. Intimidation is encouraged, just no actual consuming. Rule number 2, we split all profits 50-50. I have no need for your currency, Rocky said dismissively. Even better. Rule number 3, ship decisions are mine, cosmic deity decisions are yours. Acceptable. And rule number 4, we need to get you some clothes. This earned him a look of draconian confusion. I am a stone dragon. Why would I require clothes? Not for practical reasons, Max explained. For style. Trust me, a well-dressed dragon makes a statement. I'm thinking something in deep onyx with maybe gold accents, regal, imposing, but with a touch of modern flair. Rocky stared at him for a long moment. You are a strange human. Says the talking stone dragon, Max countered. Now buckle up, metaphorically, as I don't have a seatbelt that would fit you. We're heading to the Trilaxian system. I know a tailor there who's very discreet and has experience with non-standard body types. As the relentless pursuit broke atmosphere, leaving the three sons of Neodryes behind, Max couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. Yes, he'd failed to deliver the jewel to his client. Yes, he now had a potentially volatile dragon deity as a partner. And yes, his ship's insurance definitely didn't cover acts of God when the god in question was literally sitting in the co-pilot seat. But Max had always believed that life was about adapting to unexpected circumstances. By the way, he said casually, what should I call you? Rocky seems a bit informal for an ancient cosmic entity. My true name would cause your mind to collapse and your ears to bleed, the dragon replied matter-of-factly. Let's avoid that, Max suggested. How about a nickname? In my time, I was known as Azeroth, keeper of the 16 flames, destroyer of the void between worlds. Max considered this a bit long for casual conversation. How about AZ? Acceptable. Great. Max and AZ, retrieval specialists extraordinaire. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? AZ didn't respond, his attention caught by the vastness of space now visible through the view screen. For a being who had been bound to a single location for 8 millennia, the infinite expanse must have been both thrilling and overwhelming. It's something, isn't it? Max said softly. No matter how many times I see it, it never gets old. It has changed, AZ replied, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. The stars are in different positions. Constellations I once knew are gone. That's the thing about the universe, Max said. It doesn't stay still for anyone. Not even dragon gods. Perhaps, AZ mused, that is why the old ways must sometimes yield to new ones. I'm very glad we agree on that point, Max said fervently. The ship's communication system suddenly chimed, indicating an incoming message. Max checked the ID and groaned. It's my client. The one expecting the jewel. This should be interesting. He accepted the call, and a holographic image appeared above the console, a tall, thin humanoid with skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that seemed to reflect starlight. She wore an elaborate headpiece that marked her as a high priestess of the Order of Akiron. Thorne, she said coldly. You missed the rendezvous. High Priestess Zaylor, Max replied with forced cheerfulness. Funny story about that. The Jewel of Akiron is a sacred artifact, she interrupted. Its theft has caused considerable distress among my order. Return it immediately, or face the consequences. About that, Max hedged, there's been a slight change of plans. The jewel is no longer available. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Explain. Well, you see, Max began, but was cut off when AZ moved into view of the holographic projector. Greetings, priestess of the false temple, AZ rumbled. I am Azeroth, the being your order has imprisoned for 8,000 years. The jewel has been returned to its rightful owner. The look on Zaylor's face was worth more than any payment Max could have received. Her copper skin paled to the color of tarnished silver, and her star-reflecting eyes widened to almost comical proportions. Impossible, she whispered. The binding was unbreakable. Evidently not, AZ replied with what Max was beginning to recognize as smugness. You, Zaylor said, turning her attention to Max, do you have any idea what you've done? Azeroth is not a deity to be worshipped, but a destroyer to be contained. The binding was for the protection of all sentient life in the galaxy. Max glanced at AZ, who seemed remarkably non-destroyer-like at the moment, despite his intimidating appearance. I think there might have been some historical misunderstandings on both sides, he suggested diplomatically. Indeed, AZ agreed. The Order of Akiron has propagated falsehoods for millennia. I was never a destroyer, but a guardian. It was your ancestors who sought to harness my power for themselves. Zaylor seemed at a loss for words, her worldview visibly crumbling. Finally, she composed herself enough to say, "The Council will hear of this, Thorne. Consider yourself blacklisted from all legitimate retrieval work in the civilized systems." The hologram disappeared before Max could respond. Well, Max sighed, that could have gone better. New horizons and ancient wisdom. She threatens you because of me, AZ observed. I have caused you professional difficulty. Max waved a dismissive hand. The civilized systems have the worst paying jobs anyway. Too many regulations, not enough desperate collectors willing to bend rules. The real money is in the frontier worlds. Nevertheless, I have created a problem for you. AZ, buddy, Max said, leaning back in his pilot's chair, if there's one constant in my life, it's problems. They come, they go, sometimes they try to eat me. It's all part of the experience. AZ seemed unconvinced but didn't pursue the matter further. Instead, he asked, what is our destination in the Tralaxian system? A little moon called Lux, Max replied, setting the coordinates. Officially, it's a mining colony. Unofficially, it's where people go when they need things that aren't strictly available through normal channels. Like tailors who can make stone dragons look fabulous, or information brokers who can tell us where to find the most valuable artifacts in the sector. You intend to continue your profession, with me as your partner? Unless you have objections. I figured showing you the galaxy would be easier if we had a purpose beyond tourism. AZ considered this. It is acceptable. But I will not assist in retrieving artifacts that imprison other entities. I have personal objections. Fair enough, Max agreed. No imprisoning artifacts. Anything else off limits? Religious relics? Royal heirlooms? Embarrassing celebrity holograms? I will judge each case individually, AZ decided. Works for me, Max said, engaging the hyperdrive. The stars outside the view screen stretched into streaks of light as the ship accelerated beyond conventional physics. Next stop, Lux. As they traveled through hyperspace, Max found himself reflecting on the day's events. Just this morning, he'd been a solo operator, carefully planning what should have been a routine heist. Now he had a partner, an ancient, cosmic entity with the power to level mountains and the apparent desire to experience the modern universe. AZ, Max said after a while, can I ask you something? You may. What was it like? Being imprisoned for 8,000 years? AZ was quiet for so long that Max thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, the dragon spoke. Time moves differently when one is bound, he said. It was not sleep, but neither was it wakefulness. I was, aware, but distant. I watched civilizations rise and fall through the jewel's connection to the world. I saw wars fought in my name, temples built to honor a memory of me that bore little resemblance to reality. That must have been frustrating. Indeed. The Order of Akiron claimed I was a destroyer, a force of chaos that needed to be contained. In truth, I was created to be a protector, a guardian against the true darkness that exists between the stars. But power corrupts, even the pure of heart, and my abilities were coveted by those who should have been my allies. Max nodded thoughtfully. So the binding wasn't just imprisonment, it was character assassination. An apt description. For 8 millennia, I have been vilified as the very thing I was created to stand against. Well, Max said, that ends now. We'll make sure people know the truth. You would do this for me? Partner, Max said simply. Besides, I've always had a thing for underdogs. Or should I say, underdragons. Despite everything, AZ made a sound that might have been laughter, like distant thunder rolling across stone mountains. The ship's navigation system chimed, indicating their approach to the Tralaxian system. Through the view screen, they could see the system's famous lavender-colored stars, their unusual hue caused by specific gas compositions that made the entire system look like it was permanently bathed in twilight. Welcome to Lux, Max said as they approached the small mining moon. Population, whoever doesn't want to be found, plus a few people who actually mind things. Perfect place for a fresh start. As they entered the moon's atmosphere, Max couldn't help but smile. Yes, his original mission had been a complete disaster. Yes, he was now blacklisted from legitimate work. And yes, his new partner was a millennia-old dragon deity with cosmic powers and a tendency to accidentally break things. But for the first time in years, Max felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. "You know what, AZ," he said as they descended toward the spaceport. "I have a feeling this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship." "Indeed," AZ replied, watching the alien landscape scroll past beneath them. "Though I believe the universe may never be quite the same." "Let's hope not," Max said, grinning as he brought the relentless pursuit in for landing. "Where's the fun in that?" As the ship touched down on the dusty landing pad of Lux spaceport, both man and dragon knew their greatest adventures were still ahead of them. The universe was vast, full of wonders and dangers and opportunities for those brave enough, or foolish enough, to seek them out. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient powers stirred, drawn by the awakening of Azeroth and the freedom of forces that have been bound for far too long. But that, as they say, is another story. For now, Max Thorne and his unlikely partner stepped out into the lavender-tinted atmosphere of a new world, ready to face whatever challenges the cosmos might throw at them. After all, they had cosmic powers, 14 useful pockets, and a really good coffee maker. How hard could it be? The end.